Someone insults you in public. All eyes turn to see how you'll react. Your blood boils, and sharp words hover on your tongue. But here's the truth. The Stoics knew well, the strongest person isn't the one who shouts the loudest, it's the one who controls himself when provoked. True power isn't in crushing others with anger, but in mastering your own response. Welcome to Wisdom for Worlds. I'm glad you're here, because today's conversation could change the way you handle conflict forever. I'll show you 6 powerful Stoic responses that can silence critics, disarm insults, and protect your dignity without you ever raising your voice. These aren't cheap comebacks or clever tricks. They're timeless strategies practiced by Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, methods that reveal wisdom, not weakness. Stick around, because once you master these responses, you'll never fear confrontation the same way again. Response number 1. I see your point. Help me understand your reasoning. When someone attacks you, your work, your ideas, your character, the natural instinct is to fire back, to defend, to argue, to prove them wrong. But the Stoics taught us that when you react emotionally, you hand over your power. The intelligent move is curiosity. Instead of snapping back, try this. I see your point. Help me understand your reasoning. I learned the power of this response during a tense meeting years ago. I had just finished presenting a project proposal when a colleague cut me off with a sharp comment. This idea is completely unrealistic. You don't understand the market at all. My blood boiled. Every muscle in my body wanted to fight back, to list the hours of research I had poured into it. But instead I took a breath and replied, I see your point, David. Could you help me understand what parts feel unrealistic to you? The room went quiet. All eyes shifted to him. He stammered. He searched for details but had none. Eventually, he admitted he hadn't actually read the full proposal. His attack collapsed. Not because I destroyed him with words, but because I invited him to explain what wasn't there. This method works because most verbal attacks aren't built on facts, they're built on emotion. People lash out with quick, vague judgments like, you're wrong, that's stupid, or you don't get it. When you calmly ask them to explain, you force them into rational territory. And most of the time they can't back it up. The Stoics admired Socrates for exactly this reason. Socrates didn't win arguments by shouting. He asked questions. He believed the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. By using curiosity instead of defense, you flip the conversation. You stay calm, you stay open, and you invite the other person to expose either their ignorance or their truth. The beauty of this response is its flexibility. Sometimes, yes, you'll discover they had a valid point, something you missed. And in that case, you gain knowledge instead of losing face. But when their attack is empty, their own words undo them. Either way, you win, not through aggression but through control. Strong men don't need to prove themselves with louder voices. They prove themselves by asking the one question that turns attacks into silence. Help me understand your reasoning. Response number 2, you're absolutely right. Here's what I'll do about it. There's another situation that rattles most people, when criticism is actually true. You missed the deadline. You made a mistake. You fell short. The ego wants to defend, to explain, to excuse. But the Stoics would say, that's weakness. True strength is in owning it immediately. That's where this response comes in. You're absolutely right, and here's what I'll do about it. I once faced this during a high-stakes client meeting. The client looked straight at me and said, your team keeps missing deadlines. This is becoming a serious problem. My instincts screamed to explain, to blame scope changes, resource shortages, shifting priorities. And all of it was true. But I remembered Epictetus's wisdom. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. So instead, I looked at the client and said, you're absolutely right, and here's what I'll do. Starting today, we're implementing a new tracking system to flag risks earlier. I'll personally send you weekly updates every Friday, so you're never caught off guard again. And I'm taking ownership of this current project to guarantee delivery by the revised deadline we set now. The effect was immediate. His posture softened. The tension in the room dissolved. We shifted from adversaries to partners. Instead of arguing over the past, we were collaborating on the future. This response disarms critics because it gives them exactly what they want: acknowledgement and action. Most people criticize for two reasons. Either they want to see you squirm, or they want to see you improve. When you skip defensiveness and go straight to responsibility, you rob them of the first reason and fulfill the second. And the respect you earn is immense. Intelligent men don't waste time arguing about whether a problem exists. They take action to solve it. That's leadership. That's wisdom. But here's the key. This only works when the criticism is valid. Don't use it to bow to unfair attacks or lies. Use it when the critic is right and you know it. That's when your willingness to own the mistake shows real strength. The Stoics would call this self-mastery. Not letting pride dictate your words, but choosing humility and responsibility instead. When you respond with, "You're right, here's what I'll do," you stop fighting battles over the past and start building trust for the future. And in the end, that's what silences people far more than excuses ever could. Response. Number 3. That's an interesting perspective. What made you think that? Few responses are more elegant and more devastating than calm curiosity. When someone throws out a snide comment or tries to provoke you, your instinct may be to fight back, defend yourself, or snap with equal force. But the Stoics would say, resist that urge. Let them reveal themselves. The response is simple. That's an interesting perspective. What made you think that? I saw this in action at a dinner party. A friend of mine, Rachel, is a successful freelance designer. During the evening, someone she barely knew sneered, "Must be nice to sit around all day playing on a computer and calling it a career." The insult hung heavy in the air. She could have defended herself, listed her clients, her late nights, her hard-won success. Instead, she smiled and said, "That's an interesting perspective. What made you think that?" The man stumbled. "Well, it seems like..." He trailed off, realizing his words had no real substance. In seconds, he went from attacker to exposed. And Rachel didn't raise her voice once. This response works because it flips the dynamic. Instead of defending yourself, you invite them to explain. And most cheap insults or thoughtless remarks collapse under their own weight when asked to stand on logic. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. By staying composed, curious, and respectful, you make their hostility look small and your dignity look immense. But tone is everything here. You must sound genuinely curious, not sarcastic. Delivered with mockery, it turns into another attack. Delivered with calm sincerity, it forces the other person into self-reflection. This technique works especially well in public settings. Everyone watching will see the difference between their pettiness and your composure. Instead of clashing head to head, you hold up a mirror and let them see themselves. The truth is, most people who lash out aren't speaking from wisdom. They're speaking from bias, frustration, or ignorance. By asking, "What made you think that?" you don't just silence them, you give them the rare chance to confront their own reasoning. And in that silence, your strength speaks volumes. Response number 4. I appreciate you sharing that. Imagine someone approaches you angrily. Their words are sharp, their tone hostile. Every part of you wants to match their energy, to defend yourself. But there is a Stoic weapon more surprising than silence, more powerful than anger: gratitude. The response is, "I appreciate you sharing that." A few years ago, I had a neighbor storm over to my yard, furious about my dog barking while I was at work. His voice was sharp. "Your dog is driving everyone insane. We're ready to call animal control." My pulse quickened. I wanted to snap back, to point out his rude delivery, but instead I took a breath and said, "I really appreciate you telling me this. I honestly had no idea, and I'm glad you came to me directly." The effect was instant. His shoulders softened, his voice calmed. Instead of continuing his tirade, he started offering solutions, recommendations for trainers, advice from his own experience. What began as hostility turned into cooperation. Why does this work? Because people expect defensiveness. They come armed for a fight. When you thank them instead, you disarm them completely. You show that you value their perspective, even if it's delivered poorly. And that changes the emotional temperature of the conversation. Seneca once wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Gratitude ends hostility and begins collaboration. Of course, discernment is key. This response works best when the other person's complaint has some truth in it, when they're frustrated but not malicious. By appreciating their honesty, you shift the frame from me versus you to us against the problem. Psychologically, gratitude also signals strength. It shows you're secure enough not to crumble under criticism. Instead of reacting with pride, you respond with humility. And paradoxically, that humility commands respect. What's remarkable is how quickly people adjust when you treat them as reasonable. They rise to the expectation. The neighbor who started as an enemy became an ally, helping me solve the issue. This is Stoicism at work. Not controlling others, but controlling yourself. Not turning every conflict into a battle, but transforming it into an opportunity for cooperation. Intelligent men know sometimes the most powerful response to hostility is a simple, "Thank you for telling me." Response number 5, silent pause. Thank you for that insight. Sometimes the wisest response isn't words at all, it's silence. The Stoics believed that mastering your tongue was mastering yourself, and nothing proves that more than this technique. Pause, then respond calmly with, "Thank you for that insight." I once used this during a business presentation. I was pitching a new strategy when a competitor interrupted. "I'm not sure we should trust marketing advice from someone with so little experience." His words dripped with condescension. My chest tightened. My instinct was to list my credentials, to put him in his place. Instead, I stopped, looked at him, held the silence for 3 seconds that felt like 30. Then I said, "Thank you for that insight." The room shifted instantly. The silence made his insult echo louder. My calm response contrasted sharply with his hostility. Suddenly, everyone saw him for what he was, petty and unprofessional. I didn't need to defend myself. He had already exposed himself. The Stoic Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The pause gives weight to your composure. It lets their words hang in the air, judged not by you, but by everyone who hears them. The key is sincerity. No sarcasm, no smirk, just calm gratitude. Delivered this way, you keep your dignity, while their attack collapses under its own weight. In group settings, it's devastatingly effective, because silence amplifies contrast. Their aggression against your grace. When you master the pause, you prove the ultimate Stoic truth. Control of self is greater than control of others. Response. Number 6. Let's focus on what's in our control. Not every confrontation comes as an insult. Sometimes it's a heated debate. Tempers flare, voices rise, emotions run high. Everyone's energy is spiraling out of control. That's when a Stoic reminder cuts through the noise. Let's focus on what's in our control. I once sat in a strategy meeting that was devolving fast. 2 team members were arguing over market conditions, government policies, and industry rumors, things far outside our influence. The room was tense, productivity collapsing. I finally leaned forward and said, "Look, we can't control government decisions or market swings, but what we can control is our response, our plan, our execution, and our communication. So let's focus there." The shift was immediate. Voices softened, energy redirected. People began offering solutions instead of complaints. That single Stoic principle rescued hours of wasted conflict. Epictetus framed it perfectly. Some things are in our control and others not. Indeed, this isn't just philosophy, it's strategy. When conversations spiral, bringing the focus back to what's controllable restores clarity. This response works because it recenters the conversation. Instead of battling over endless what-ifs, you anchor everyone in the present, in action, in responsibility. You remind them of their power and limit the drain of focusing on what they can't change. Strong men don't get dragged into chaos. They bring people back to calm with a single phrase: let's focus on what's in our control. All 6 of these Stoic responses share one thread. They protect your dignity. They don't rely on clever comebacks or loud voices. They rely on self-control. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus understood that our words reveal our mastery or our slavery to emotion. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can argue. But the wise man, the strong man, silences others not by shouting, but by standing unshaken. When you say, "Help me understand your reasoning," or "I appreciate you sharing that," you aren't just handling conflict, you're embodying strength. When you pause and calmly say, "Thank you for that insight," you show that your peace cannot be stolen. This is the essence of Stoicism. Control yourself and you control the moment. If this video gave you tools you can use in your own life, hit the like button. It helps this wisdom reach more people. Subscribe to Wisdom for Worlds for more Stoic lessons that will sharpen your mind and strengthen your character. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 6 responses will you try first? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone, and if you want to go deeper, watch my video on Stoic ways to handle insults. It will take your composure to the next level.